Memory cards, memory cards, memory cards. These little things can give us a whole lot of headache if they are not managed correctly. So I'm doing this video to share with you some best tips and best practices on how best to manage your memory cards so that they don't mess you up one day like they've messed me up before. And if you're a photographer out there with some experience, I'm sure you may have come across those scenarios where you just finished a job, maybe a wedding, a birthday, and you put this little thing inside the computer, and then that error message comes up that says memory card corrupted, please format, and you haven't backed up the files at all. Or you take out a whole bunch of memory cards like this, and then you realize that the little slider here is damaged, and 256 gigs, 128 gigs, 64 gigs, no matter the size, it now becomes useless. There's nothing you can do about it. Very crazy. So let's talk about how to help your memory cards last longer. We're going to share both some manufacturers' advice, what the manufacturers say about how best to manage the memory card, and also from real-world experience and personal experience. I'm going to share a few tips from my experience and hope we all learn something today. Stay tuned. Today's shoot is actually very difficult to make because I'm having distractions right, left, and center, and it's driving me absolutely crazy. But let's get to the video. So here are some tips and recommendations to help you make your memory cards last longer and avoid failures. The tips are coming both from manufacturers and real-world usage, from my own experience, from hanging out with colleagues in the field, reading and so on. The first tip is format your cards in your camera. Try to format your memory cards in the camera that you're using rather than on your computer. So if you have a Sony camera, put your memory card in your Sony camera and format it before you start using it, maybe for a particular job. If it's a Nikon camera, Canon camera, it doesn't matter the kind of camera you're using, a Pocket 3, an Action 4. Once you put a memory card inside and you want to start afresh, it's best to format it within the camera rather than formatting it on your computer and then putting it in the camera. When you format it on your computer, it's going to format according to the digital environment of the laptop. When you format it in your card, it's going to be formatted according to the way the manufacturer designed for the card to be formatted, and it will work best that way with your particular camera. Invest in high quality memory cards from reputable brands. Some reputable brands include SanDisk, Lexa, Samsung. These are not the only reputable brands out there, and this is not a sponsored video, so I'm not trying to promote them, but generally speaking, the cheaper you buy the memory card, the less likely that it's going to be something of high quality. So you can imagine if you go on the internet, you're searching for a high quality memory card and you see a 64 gig done by Lexa or Samsung for maybe $200, and then you go on some other China digital marketplace or any other marketplace in your country and you see that same 64 gig going for $5. Don't give in to the temptation to buy a $5 version of the 64 gig when there's a $200 version of the 64 gig. Invest your money and buy at least one or two high quality memory cards. You can reserve them for your high stakes jobs that people are paying you good money for, and you can take a risk on the smaller memory cards, maybe for some casual shooting and all of those things. So invest in high quality memory cards. The reason is that these brands often provide better durability and performance. The third tip is try not to fill your memory card to its maximum capacity. Leave a little space to help prevent data corruption. Sometimes we shoot on these cards, and when we see that we're almost like 80% full or like 85% full, we keep on shooting, and then you get the message that says the last image could not be recorded, memory card full, storage space occupied, that kind of a thing. Try to leave a little space for the memory card to be able to use for its own internal working, and that way you can preserve the life of your memory card. Remember, we're talking about manufacturer recommendations, so try not to fill your memory card to its maximum capacity. Leaving a little space can help prevent data corruption. Now, proper ejection. Always safely eject your memory card from your camera or your computer to avoid data corruption. Sometimes we eject the memory cards too quickly and too roughly when we're trying to switch memory cards, for instance, or remove the memory card to do a backup. You just put your finger in and you're bringing it out immediately. You have to be quite gentle. Do it in a gentle way. Bring the card out, put it back in very gently. These cards are quite delicate. They're very small, very fragile. So you need to be careful when you are ejecting your memory card. Another manufacturer tip is to regularly format your memory cards, keep them in good working condition. And this helps to clear any potential file system errors. So once in a while, after you've used the card for a while, don't just leave it there. Put it into the camera and format it after you've backed everything up. It's just like a refresh or a reboot of the memory card. All the filing systems and all the data systems within the card get a refresh, a reboot, and they begin to work better and last longer. So let's talk about some real world usage tips and best practices from the field, from experience. First one is always carry backup cards. Always have backup cards with you, because card failures can be unpredictable, and having backups will ensure that you don't miss important shots. Very, very important. I don't need to elaborate or stress it. Just have more than one card. Another tip is avoid deleting files in camera. So try not to be deleting individual files from your memory card while you're holding your camera, while you're using your camera. Sometimes we do this a lot, especially when we're running out of space and we're on assignment. You now begin to scroll through and say, nah, I'm going to delete this one, I'll delete it. That's why it's good to have backups, because if you have backup cameras, you can just remove that card and put it very safely in a proper memory card wallet. So when you get back and you put it on your computer, you can select the ones to delete, possibly in program like in Lightroom or any other software, or you can just use your file viewer on your computer if you're using a Mac like Finder. So instead, delete your files on your computer instead after you've transferred them in the memory card. So even when the memory card is in your computer, try to avoid deleting from the actual card folder. Rather, transfer the files into your computer and delete from there. When you do this, you help to preserve the file structure, you help to keep things safe for your memory card. And I think it's also important in case you want to recover files from the card. When the original file structure is there, it's easier than when you've pulled something out, deleted something, deleted some other EXIF file and all of those things. So wait until you transfer all the files to your computer and then you now start deleting. So another tip is to use a card reader. Use a high quality card reader to do your transfers, to transfer files from your memory card to your computer. Another tip is, if your camera can connect directly using maybe a USB-C port or some other port to your computer, it's also good practice to use that to do your transfers rather than removing the memory card every time and putting it in the computer and putting it back. If you keep doing that, the chances that you're going to wear out your camera's memory card slot is high, and that's happened to me a lot of times. I had a studio for a while, and we're always filling up our cards and switching and all of that, and we're always putting your cards in and out, to put in the computer to show your client the photos, putting back in the camera. As one particular day that the card just refused to get in, and we found out that a little piece of the memory card, one of these ridges here, had broken off inside, and cost us a lot of money to get that little piece out and to fix it. So if you can, use a cable and transfer your file digitally from the card directly from the camera to your computer. That way you prevent the chances of bringing out your memory card so often and introducing wear and tear and damaging the memory card in the process by mistake. The next tip is, of course, goes without saying, it's common sense. Keep your cards clean and dry. Store your memory cards in a protective case to keep them clean and dry. So right now I have a lot of cards stored in this bag here. They're right here, somewhere in here, and it's not the most ideal memory card storage space, but I mean it's better than just leaving them lying around in the compartments of your bag or in your pocket. I've actually sometimes been that careless and put memory cards in the little pocket at the top of my jeans, and it's just not best practice. So have a nice dedicated space. There are many of these kind of beautiful memory card wallets and little cases on Amazon, on Jumia, and all of these places, and you can find a very beautiful one and then make sure you keep your cards there. So avoid getting them wet, and avoid them getting exposed to harsh weather, heat, and extreme temperatures or moisture, all of those things. When they're properly kept in a case, they will last longer. Another thing is to try to replace your old cards. Memory cards don't last forever, you know that very well. And I've seen people keep around their memory cards. I've done it a lot before, because you just feel like there might be something there I don't want to lose, but you've had it for quite a while and it's old, it looks old, it feels old, it's telling you that it's old. So every few years or every few months, if you just know you have an old memory card, back it up and buy a new one, just to avoid unexpected failure. So some additional tips I'll give is, stop using your memory card at first sign of an error. So if you put your memory card in, maybe into your computer or into your camera, and it shows an error message, you're not sure what it is, you switch off the camera, you put it back on and the error message disappears. Or even on your computer, you see that error message, you eject it, put it back, and the error message disappears. That's a warning sign. And so it might be the best thing to do to think about replacing that card. And I won't be surprised if that happens if you buy like a cheap quality memory card just because you're trying to save money. But we know we talked about investing in high quality memory cards. Even if you sit on a high quality memory card, it might be the best thing to stop using it immediately, especially for high stakes jobs where you're working for a client. You don't want to lose the material in that card, so stop using it to prevent further damage and to keep your files safe. A very important tip is also battery management. So ensure your camera's battery is sufficiently charged, because a sudden power loss can corrupt the data on your memory card, and we don't want that to happen. Another tip is to avoid static charges. So handle memory cards with care to avoid static charges. You see all this the metal part of this card, try to avoid touching them with your hand as much as possible, because that's the area of contact with the digital reader in your camera or in your computer, and that's where the data flows. So if all these metallic parts of the card, you keep touching them with your fingers and putting them carelessly on the table, you stand a chance of creating electric charges, static charges, and damage the card. Avoid keeping it around magnets, any other device that emits maybe electromagnetic radiation or whatever. Let's not go into physics here, but you get the idea. The idea is that you hold the memory card from the rubber part, try to avoid touching the metallic parts, and the memory card would last longer. So by following these tips, you can significantly extend the lifespan of your memory card and reduce the risk of data loss. In another video, I'm going to talk about some experiences I've had, losing data, and how I was able to manage the situation, either positively or negatively. And maybe I could also share a couple of other experiences with memory cards and with data loss. I think if you follow these tips, the manufacturer tips, let's not forget the manufacturer tips, and tips from a general experience, real world usage, making sure you have enough backups of memory cards, making sure you keep the memory cards in a dedicated space away from extreme weather and temperature, and generally just treating them gently, treating them with care, because they're very delicate little devices, these little things here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you have any other best tips or advice or best practices on how to extend the life of your memory cards and how to prevent data loss, especially when you're transferring files from your camera to your computer, to and fro, vice versa, whatever the case may be. Hope you enjoyed watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.